One decision. If you got a big business opportunity, but there's a lot of uncertainty, you've never gone down this path before. This one decision, you could easily walk away from it, but it could turn into an incredible amount of wealth and opportunity beyond this one scary moment that could change your life. So now it's been 4.5 years since I got sober and started my business, and I've produced over $40 million in revenue.
Welcome to Be Bold Branding, where we discuss the power of differentiating yourself through your own unique story and standout personal brand. Overcoming incredible obstacles is one thing, but turning that around to build a $30 million business in 4 short years is another. If you've ever faced challenges you thought you couldn't conquer, join us today as we chat with Jefferson Rogers, the CEO of JKR Windows and an author, speaker, and podcast host who has made a very bold move to turn the tide toward the positive.
Welcome to Be Bold Branding, Jefferson.
Wow, appreciate you guys having me.
Yes, sir. This is going to be an interesting conversation because you're definitely one of the boldest moves that we've heard and talked to lately. And that's what this podcast is about, people just like yourself. So we're looking forward to learning more about you and some of the obstacles you've overcome and the bold moves you've made. So we're looking forward to it.
Absolutely. I appreciate you guys having me on. I'm excited for it.
You bet. Okay, so I was fascinated, first of all, with your background of alcoholism. Okay. And let's just go straight for it. Okay. Because I come from a family that was pretty much riddled with alcoholism and addiction. And Michael did too, actually. And just seeing people overcome those odds has been an incredible thing. And also seeing some of those who didn't, right? Which brings me to the question. You talk about hitting your bottom, and everybody who's heard about that, talks about it. What was that for you?
Well, I had a couple of rock bottoms. They came at different points in my life. Some of them I chose to do something with, some of them I didn't. But the most recent one was 2017. I'd been dealing with drug and alcohol addiction since I was a teenager. And it just kind of came to a point where I'd quit and started back up and spent all these cycles just justifying these behaviors and thought that I could do it responsibly and socially and all the things that we tell ourselves so we can continue to do these habits. And it just led me right back down the path every single time I was all in. There was no middle ground for me. I would spend a weekend drinking, and then, I'm not going to drink till next weekend. And then I find myself back at the gas station, back at the liquor store. And it got to a point where I was having to hide it. So my wife knew that I was drinking beer because I would carry beers around with me, but she didn't know about the little bottles of alcohol that I had picked up at the liquor store. And I would hide in the garage, and I had one in my closet. So, within just a few minutes of getting home, I'd be tore up. And it got to a point where I spent a day golfing with my brother, started drinking at 10 a.m., ended up at a concert that night after drinking all day, and brought a water bottle full of vodka in with me. And I was completely belligerent, could barely string sentences together. Everybody else is having a great time that, of course, were, taking it easy on the alcohol and still coherent and being able to enjoy themselves. And I started getting irritated because, everybody's having a good time. And I just was slurring my words, and I sounded like an idiot. So I got in a little argument with my wife, and I walked out of the concert, and I was just going to go back to the truck. I think I can barely remember it, but I ended up right at the truck. There was this guy and his girlfriend walking the opposite direction of me. And I think that I haven't gotten in very many fights in my life. The fights that I have gotten in, I've gotten my ass kicked many a times, but most of the time I would just, if I had a choice, I'd headbutt him so I could try and end it quickly because I'm not a fighter. And I don't know if the guy said something to me or if I was just wanting to stir some shit, and I just headbutted this guy, and I knocked him out. And his girlfriend lost her mind because he got knocked out and his arms went up in the air, and it was just like this scary thing. And I ended up getting in the vehicle and driving off instead of just hanging out till everybody was done. So I got chased by security, and I ended up ditching the vehicle and running, and it got impounded. We all had to pile in this little 4-seater Honda Civic. I think there was like 8 of us in that thing to get home. And the next morning we were supposed to use that stinking vehicle that I got impounded to take my son to his 12th birthday party. So this was like, there's a lot more that goes into the story, but it was just this shameful, just really silly thing that I put myself and my family through. And the next morning I was so hungover that I was sleeping on the bench at the bounce place where my son was doing his birthday party instead of being able to be a dad and participate. And then, I'd lost trust in my wife, and I had all this patching up to do. I had now some legal troubles because of it. And it was a pretty low. And I just didn't ever want to do that again. And I finally found a way to get out of it. And we can go a little bit more into detail on that. But man, that was I didn't kill anybody, thank God. I didn't get injured or hurt myself. I didn't actually go to jail. And it could have been a whole lot worse, but it was bad enough for me to want to do something different.
Yeah, something that was enough for a turnaround.
Yep.
Did that lead to your book and the podcast all in, or had you been working on that already, or did that lead to that?
So that all led to everything that's happened since then.
Okay.
2 months after that, I joined a mentor program, and 2 months after joining the mentor program, I got sober. 2 months after getting sober, I started my business back in March of 2018. So now it's been 4.5 years since I got sober and started my business, and I've produced over $40 million in revenue within my business. And
that's fantastic.
Writing a book, doing business advising. There's all kinds of crazy things that came from that one really low moment. And I finally used it as fuel to do something different and turn my life around and start doing some smart things.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And that's the bold stuff. Now, well, I asked you about the book and the podcast, so let's get to that though. But since it all sort of happened at the same time, were you already in construction a little bit? Like, tell us why the window business? What made you?
Yeah. So
really
I
for that?
The window business in 2017. I actually started in 2014, and my dad was a general contractor growing up. He was a firefighter for 27 years in Las Vegas, and firefighters, depending on where you are, they have a type of schedule that allows them to do a lot of things on their off time. So at the end of his career, he would work 2 days on and then he'd have 4 days off. But for the most of his career, he would do 1 day on, 1 day off, 1 day on, 1 day off, 1 day on, 4 days off. So he ended up starting a general contractor's business back in the 90s. And from the time I was 9 or 10 years old, I was working construction, learning how to use power tools and build houses.
Mm-hmm.
I've been in the home services industry my whole life. And it just happened to run into a guy that was a friend of mine and a mentor. And he started with this window business and wanted to show me the sample window. And it was kind of confusing at the time because he was very successful entrepreneur and real estate investor. And he had ran a financial services business for years and years, made hundreds of thousands of dollars. And then he had gone to work for this replacement window business, all with the goal of starting his own replacement window business. So I saw myself doing it just because I loved the product and I believed in this guy, and I loved the guy that was showing me the business. And we were supposed to be partners in the beginning, but it ended up just being that I was one of their sales guys and helped them open offices and things like that. So when the time came, I kind of had a chip on my shoulder because I didn't end up being a partner, and ended up, it worked out for the best. I ended up starting my own, and we've done some great things over the last 4.5 years.
Clearly. That's great. I've got a little background in that myself. I've always been in a real estate business and invested in real estate and rehab just hundreds and hundreds of homes and bought and sold hundreds. And, and the window business has always been fascinating to me because I just feel like people in the window business have it figured out because, I know how many times I've gone to replace windows and I'm like, I need this size. And they're like, we don't have that size. We have this size. And I'm like, man, these guys are geniuses. They change this stuff up like every 3 years or something.
Well, there's the neat thing about replacement windows. If you work with the right company, a lot of the standard sizes, you're right. I mean, they have stock in these standard sizes, and you're stuck with those standard sizes. But what we do is we custom build every single window. So no matter what the size or the shape or the color, we can either match it or replace it with what you want to fit exactly in that existing hole.
Yep.
And it's, you know, it makes it so no matter where you go or what kind of house you have, we can replace it with energy efficient, high performance windows.
That's awesome. Yeah.
That is awesome. So, you know, tell us about building your team, because you said you've got your team, and now we have the correction to make in the introduction. We said $30 million company. Since we got that info from him, he's now a $40 million company. All right. So you mentioned your team members that they, you know, in the information that we had, it was up to about 100 people, maybe more than that now. But how were you able to find them and build that and nurture those people to achieve the culture that you want?
Yeah, that's one of the most important things. And one of the things I hear about a lot these days is that, you know, it's tough to find people. It's tough to train people. It's tough to retain good people when you do have them. So you know, we've had some turnover in our business, but very little. And if the more that I bring other people in from other industries to come work with me, the more I realize how unique our situation is, and that we've been able to attract really good people and retain really good people. We've never really had a tough time finding good people. And I think it has a lot to do with just the culture that I wanted to build in this business, and have a place that people can be excited to come to work and to be a part of, and to have something to believe in and get excited about coming to work every day.
Mm-hmm.
So when I started the business, it was almost like this crusade feeling. You know, I had these other companies that I'd been a part of, and I'd been around the industry long enough to see other companies taking advantage of customers. And every single day in the office, in the sales meetings with all of my people, I'm talking about all these things about wanting to change this industry and do something special and separate ourselves and offer just an incredible customer experience in the home services industry that is just non-existent everywhere.
Right.
And when you talk to people like that and you're excited, doesn't matter if it's on a Zoom call interview or you got somebody in person, people's faces light up. They're like, I've never heard anybody talk like this. And you know, I just eat, sleep, and breathe this business and want to make it something incredible and build it to a $200 million level. And I'm going to need a lot of good people to do it. And I just kind of naturally caught on to the culture and the vision that attracts good people without even realizing it.
Well, you're clearly good at it, and that's fantastic. Obviously, leadership is everything, you know, when you're building an organization like that. I had the occasion to meet a guy that's in the steel building business. I was building one, and met this young man, and he was the same way. They were working on like 6 or 7 different projects in 5 different states, and he's got like 60 guys that work for him. And I'm like, dude, how do you do it? You know, and it was the same as what you were saying. He's like, oh, I'm good to them. And, you know, we're selling the vision and we're putting it forth. So, you know, your leadership is
you can
clear.
really apply it to anything. So now, because I've learned how unique it is and the power of it, this is what I teach and advise other businesses on. So if you don't have that, you need to find it. It doesn't matter if you're doing insurance or you're doing real estate, and you're all by yourself, or you have a team of 3 or 4 or 30 or 40, and you're struggling with new people. You have got to take a look at what you're doing as a business owner and the leaders you have in place, the culture and the environment that you've created to this point. And if it's not quite up to par with what it needs to be to attract high quality people and take you to the next level, if that is your goal, then you got to take a good hard look and make some changes.
I like that. Does that tie in with your podcast and your book, All In, or is that more just what led you to that spot?
So I think it's kind of what led me to all of these things. You know, I started the podcast on a whim, and it was a good friend of mine and one of the guys that works with me here at JKR Windows. He used to film on Twitch, and he had all of this equipment, all the audio, all the video, the lighting. And he'd done something similar to a podcast where he'll actually stream live while he's playing video games. So he's like, man, if you want to do a podcast, I got all the stuff, we could set you up. And that's mostly everything that I still use for all of my filming today is the stuff that I got from him. And then it led to, you know, this all in concept of my type of mentality and everything that I've ever done in my life. is just like a one track mind focus. I'm all in this direction right now.
Mm-hmm.
And for the past 4.5 years, I've been all in on JKR Windows, personal development, reading, developing myself as a leader and a communicator and a father and a husband. And, before this, I was all in on drugs and alcohol. And it's just kind of led me to the business consulting and advising. Some of the things that that come naturally to me don't come naturally to everybody. And it makes this skill set that I have something that didn't seem all that special, but I can really bring a lot of value. And I've helped several businesses grow significantly by just applying some simple things to their businesses that they may be strong in these other areas, but these couple areas that they're really attracted to me because of the way that I've grown my business. I mean, businesses just take off.
I like that, because really you're double giving. Number one, you've turned some negativity into very positive, right? But you're not just stopping there. As you're growing JKR Windows, then you're also teaching other people. You're passing that knowledge on. And I think that's incredible, because you recognize you have so much more to give. So it's really, we're talking about two bold moves today with you. You did the all in on your company. You're still all in on your company. You're leading that, but then you're also taking that knowledge and passing it out into a wider swath of people. I think that's incredible. And before we end, we'll obviously get your information for the listeners to see if anybody, can find that, if you can feel that need for them also. So it's, that's incredible.
And I told you at Jefferson that we had some things in common, and I wanted to take just a moment and kind of, we always sit here in life and we marvel at the people that we run across and why, this moment had to bring us together. Right. And when in the personal branding world, we teach that you are just an extension of your childhood in many ways. And your story emanates from that, the people and the events in your life that changed who you are or influenced who you are. And in my life, as I alluded to it earlier, I grew up in a household where there was, my dad was an alcoholic and an addict. And years later, as in last summer, I ended up writing his memoir. It's called The Raising of a Rebel, 12 Turning Points from a Child of Alcoholics. Well, that came from what seemingly is a very interesting story, which was my grandfather was a moonshiner, and so was my grandmother. And so my dad grew up surrounded with all of that and didn't really know any other way of life, but it was a very volatile and violent kind of a world that he had to live in. And then, of course, that segued into him becoming an alcoholic himself. So he went through all of that. And I say all of this to say it just really struck me when I was going through your website, because I told my dad one day years ago, Dad, it's all about choices. And he never forgot that. It ended up on the back of the book. Then I go through your website and I see something that warmed my heart. It said, you are one decision away from a completely different life. Okay. Do you want to expound upon that and where that came from?
Yeah. I was going down a similar path, and it was kind of scary who I'd become. And I can still kind of hear myself when I was so drunk all the time, and just the slurred words, and in front of my kids and my wife and my whole family, really, I just didn't have much of a filter, and I tried to justify the behavior. And it was scary because I could have easily ended up like some of these other people that I see in their 40s and 50s, and they're still doing the same things, and they're hanging around the same groups of people. And I didn't want that to be me. And I'm the oldest of 4 boys, and, a proud father and husband. And I wanted to be a good example, and I just wasn't being a good example. So that, that low moment that I had in 2017 led to, I was sitting on a street one day in November of 2017. And I had an ad come across my Facebook feed. I was scrolling through Facebook. I should have been working out knocking doors, but I was scrolling through Facebook. But I'm glad I was, because I saw this ad for a mentor program. I'd read very few books at that point in my life, never done any coaching, mentoring, been to any events, conferences, anything like that. But that, for whatever reason, stuck out to me as something that it may be a good fit. It was the right message at the right time. Guy had a similar story with addiction and overcoming and seeing a large amount of success in his life. And I ended up calling my wife and asking her if she'd be all right if I spent the last $1,100 we had in our bank account to join this mentor program, because it was something I thought might be able to help me in our situation. And that was, there was a lot of other decisions and things that led me to that point and getting into sales and starting to do things a little bit more responsible through those earlier years. But I tie a lot of what has happened today to that decision. And it was a scary phone call. It was the last bit of money that we had, and it was a big commitment. But yeah, I mean, literally you're one decision away from changing your entire life and the entire trajectory of what's possible for you. And if you're at a similar place to what I was dealing with these things, which surprisingly, there is a lot more people dealing with this type of shit than we think there is.
Oh yeah, no doubt. My dad was an alcoholic, raging, and in fact drank himself to death by he was 56 when he died of cirrhosis. But we had lost him 10 years before that. He just never recovered. We couldn't reach him. I mean, there was nothing we could do. We begged and cried, and screamed and hollered and fussed and did everything we could, but he was bent on it, and but it's interesting to look back and think, as I grow into the same age that he was when he was really, raging. And I'm like, if I hadn't seen him go down that wrong path, that could have been me. I carried some of the same anger issues and frustrations and things that he did. And of course I'm, made from him. So I'm spitting image of him. And so I think about it all the time. I'm like, that could have been me if I didn't have something showing me what not to do, And so, but I think you're right. There's so many more people that are facing that kind of thing than we know.
And then, but I'm big on anything else in your life too. I mean, one decision. If you got a big business opportunity, but there's a lot of uncertainty, you've never gone down this path before. It's there's a lot of unknowns. It's scary. There's anxiety tied to it. This one decision, you could easily walk away from it, but it could turn into an incredible amount of wealth and opportunity beyond this one scary moment that could change your life. And now back to back for the past 5 years, I've been faced with these really challenging decisions and these opportunities and these scary, scary moments in my life that it's like, well, what's the worst that can happen?
Yep.
Just go after it, all in and figure it out as I go. I'm raising $12 million for a real estate transaction right now that was one of these moments. I was scared to death. It's like, I've never done anything like this before. I'm invested in hundreds of millions of dollars worth of real estate passively, but I've never taken on this kind of responsibility. And I could have easily walked away and said, it's just not the right time. But, I'm not only going to be able to help a bunch of people make a lot of money on this deal, but I'm now part of this $160 million Airbnb project that's going to make me a bunch of money and a bunch of other people money. That's going to lead to some other incredible opportunities because of how smooth this is going, like surprisingly smooth. And I almost scared myself out of it.
Well, I think that's a real big takeaway because, when we're working with clients and stuff, we tell them all the time, like, you got to be all in. I love what you said, because it so much ties to the commitment to do it. Burn the bridges behind you, torpedoes be damned. We're going forward, and this is the way we're going to do it. And that kind of commitment does, I firmly believe, open massive doors for people. But like you said, you got to get in that comfort zone of doing it, even though you're a little scared, and let that scariness be a motivator for you, not a deterrent. And so many people in life, it's a deterrent. They just can't take that first step, and you got to do that. If you want your dreams to come true.
That's right. Yep. You got to feel that fear. You got to feel it.
Yep. Let it get you up in the morning. Keep you working all day.
Well, I want to say, congratulations to you, Jefferson. I mean, what an incredible accomplishment from two people who have witnessed things like this in our lifetime. And some people don't have that in them to turn things around, or they do, but they choose not to do it. You chose to do it, and we're proud of you for it.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
clearly done really well. And we wish you all the success in the world. Of course, we'd love to have you back on sometime in the future, and you can tell us about how that deal went even smoother and you're working on the next bigger one. That would be fantastic. We just keep that theme of big, bold moves going. How can prospects reach you if they want to read your book or listen to your podcast or work with you? What's the best for them to reach out to you?
So the book, I've been working on the book for the past couple of years, and I'm finally coming to the end of it. And we're going through all of the final edits and things right now over the next couple of months. And it's going to launch the end of the first quarter next year in 2023. So I'm going to market the heck out of it. So there's going to be a lot coming out in the book, but go to the best place to get a hold of me is on Instagram at Jefferson K. Rogers. I've even got my cell phone on there. I have a bunch of people reach out to me for business and marriage and relationship and all kinds of questions on a day-to-day basis. And then the podcast, I'm actually relaunching the podcast. This is my first time filming in this studio. I moved offices and we've rebuilt the studio, getting ready to relaunch the podcast here in the next couple weeks. So excited about that. But you can check out All In with Jefferson Rogers on Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, everywhere out there. I think we've got 20 episodes and getting ready to hammer out a bunch more here in the coming weeks.
Very good. We wish you much success in that too.
We sure do. And hey, when you get ready to launch that book, shoot us an email and we will help you launch it to our entire list.
Thank you. Yeah, I'd love to come back on and
Absolutely.
Get it back out to everybody. I got to do a big push so I can end up on all the bestseller lists, and it's going to be a phenomenal book. All In. Get unstuck, accelerate, and go further, faster.
I love it.
There you go. There you go.
We'll definitely help you all we can with that.
We're all
push.
in for it.
Yeah.
Right on. Appreciate that, guys.
You bet.
Of course. And hey, listeners out there, listen, we want to bring you more and more people just like Jefferson, doing bold moves and bolder moves. So subscribe, hit that subscribe button, be the first one to know. We appreciate you. Listen, we do this thing mainly for prosperity. That's what we're about. When we talk about prosperity here, we're not just talking about money. That's just part of it. We're talking about a full 360 of an abundant life that we truly wish for all of y'all. We know it here at BrandFace, prosperity favors the bold. So we say, be bold, especially with your brand, just like Jefferson, and get rid of those fears. Thank you, Miss Tanya.
All right, you bet.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, guys.
Brought to you by BrandFace, the only comprehensive personal brand building system across the globe.